This is episode 86 of the Christian Travelers Network. Today I want to talk about tenting. Welcome to the Christian Travelers Network, where travel stories, community, and scripture combine. Hey Christian Travelers, I'm excited to talk to you about tenting. Many of you tuned into my episode a few weeks ago about RV life, and that is truly my new obsession. But before I got into that, I was really hoping that my husband and I would just have a new passion for tenting. And RV life is more of our meet in the middle place. But if I didn't share with you what I learned in our few tenting adventures, I would be missing out on sharing some amazing stories. So, tenting. When I was growing up, my family and I tented frequently. And it was never like it wasn't like we were backpacking out in the middle of nowhere. It's like we would set up a tent in our backyard, or there was a campground a couple miles away that we would go to frequently. Just things like that, where we would use our tent as a way to kind of all stay together. But my parents quickly found that laying on a hard ground is difficult, and then add 3 wild kids who want to stay up super late, it was just exhausting. So what we ended up doing is we ended up getting a pop-up camper, and that was kind of more of the affordable way for us to have a relaxing night's sleep and still get to go and travel and see a lot of places. Every year, I know there's some families who absolutely love going to the same place time in and time out, but my family always went somewhere new every year. And what I love about that is there's so many things in God's creation to go see and do. Getting to experiencing so many different things was just a blast. But there are limitations to pulling a pop-up camper, and that is there's usually this comfortable range of we'll drive within 6 to 8 hours away from home. But then outside of that, it's just kind of becomes a hassle to drive at that slower pace and go so far. So it was usually within 6 to 8 hours of home, but we still found some really cool places to go. So when I got married, I was like, okay, I want to keep traveling. That's something I'm passionate about. And I wanted my husband to come along with me. And so we were exploring different options, and the reality is that tenting is typically the cheapest thing. An RV or pop-up camper costs money. Really all of it does, because I didn't own any tenting supplies of my own. I had always used my parents' things, and so this was our first investment into the travel adventuring world. And so I was like, okay, there are some things that we just need, and I started putting together a list, and here is the list that I came up with. Okay, so the first thing is obviously a tent, and my husband actually had purchased a small one several months back in anticipation of us being married and actually getting to use it. When I saw it, I kind of giggled to myself because I'm like, that thing's super tiny. When you think of a typical tent, at least the one that I think of, they're kind of domed, they're kind of round, they can probably fit about 4 people. They're spacious, you can stand up inside of them. This is not that tent. This is a tent that is probably more of a backpacker tent, but even to me that seems, I don't know, I've never actually looked into getting a backpacking tent, but I feel like it still is kind of bulky, but not bad. But it is the old-fashioned, triangular tent. It almost reminds me someone took a rope between 2 trees and, threw a towel over it and staked down the corners, and that's what you got. It's so tiny in comparison to all the other tents. When we first set up our tent, it was whoa. It fits us, we can lay down and sleep inside of it, but you can sit up on one end, there's one corner that's higher, that's the side you come in and out, and then where your head goes on the other side, it's super low. Yeah, you can sit up, and that's about all that you can do inside of that tent. But that is the tent that we used. So then we had to get the other supplies. We needed lanterns. I decided to go with some battery-operated ones with some high LED power, with long-lasting battery life. They were super bright, and we kind of pulled in at night one of the times we went tenting, and we were able to pretty much set up our tent by those lights. We did turn on the headlights of my car as well, just for extra, but they're super bright. And in fact, sometimes we felt like we might have been kind of, I don't know, too much light for our neighbors. So I don't know how you mitigate that, but those are two things that we purchased. We needed plastic plates and silverware that we could wash, and then we got like a plastic tub that we could wash them all inside of. We needed a sleeping bag. I had one, my husband did not. We actually settled on a 2-person sleeping bag, which is nice, and it actually is really doable down to 0-degree temperatures. I think what the sleeping bag can do, if you wanted, it's one big, large blanket thing. But if you'd unzip it all the way around and fold both of those pieces in half, you'd end up with 2 separate sleeping bags. Yeah, so we have one really large sleeping bag. What else did we get? We got wood, charcoal. We got some grilling tongs so that we could like pick things up out of the fire and not get burned. Got s'more steaks. We got a cast iron skillet. I think those were kind of like the basic things. And then, and of course, an igloo cooler. And I mean, the brand doesn't really matter, but my requirement for it was, 1, that it had wheels. I wanted to be able to pull it because then things get heavy. And 2, I wanted it to have a drain on the bottom so that when we filled it with ice, to store all of our drinks and all of our food, that we could just pour it out at the end, and it would just be fine. And as long as we didn't put any like meat or anything that could like spoil or contaminate the water, we thought maybe we could use it to drink water from. Now, if I'm totally weird and wrong on that, please don't judge, and please let me know. Post that in Facebook or Instagram and share that advice, because I should know that. I need to know that. If you're looking for our Facebook and Instagram, go to christiantravelers.net. You'll find the links there. Anyway, those were our basic things, and we put it in, we got it all stored up, and we bought some like food to prep for the week. And we decided that our first trip was going to be a KOA. Now, I should backtrack. Like 2 weeks before that, we decided to have our first grilling experience. It was Labor Day weekend here in the States, and just family tradition was always to spend it picnicking and doing outdoorsy things. And my husband was so kind enough to go hiking with me, and then we decided to grill out. And it was our first time using charcoal. We were just trying to stack it up and like light a match and then like get going. And then like we thought surely the meat should be done by now. It's been 40 minutes and it still was like tender, liquidish, and pink meat. Meanwhile, I think the most embarrassing thing was like there's this huge party of like 20 people nearby using the other grill at our apartment complex, and they had a charcoal starter, which, mind you, we did buy before we went tenting. They were just smoking like crazy. They had meat going. They had started after us, and they were already serving food. And yeah, so we learned a lot in that little adventure, enough to get ourselves a charcoal starter so that when we actually cooked and tented, we'd be fine. Now, our first destination we decided to go with was a KOA resort. Again, my husband has never went tenting before. He's done it like maybe in his backyard once or twice as a kid, but has never really gotten to experience what it is like to tent. So I wanted a lot of amenities. We weren't going to do anything backpacking without electricity or without running water or bathrooms or anything like that. So we went with the KOA resort. It was really nice. Like, it was a good weekend with my husband because we just got to have some good conversation. We like set down our phones, got away from those things. We tried pickleball, which he super got into, and I was still like, what is happening? But we tried it out. We played life-size chess and checkers and hung out in hammocks, and there was Wi-Fi and a pool, and it was like we were comfortable, and then at night we were able to just like sit by our fire and cook. Now, I think we were like one of the only people there that actually used our campfire to cook all of our meals. We made cinnamon rolls in the morning, which they burned a little bit on one side because in the cast iron skillet it like heated up, and then when we should have flipped the cinnamon rolls over, they were still doughy on the other side. So if we'd been paying more attention, that might not have happened. We made burgers, we made brats. It was just kind of like a good, relaxing weekend. And we talked about our future, which I am a very futuristic minded person. So to be able to just talk about dreams and ambitions and that kind of encouragement is always a blessing. So that's kind of what our first tenting adventure was. We did it again another time. I've mentioned before that we went up to Indiana, and that time we did it in the middle of the night, and it was a nice campground. It was another KOA, but that was when we learned how to use stakes, and it wasn't the way that we did it. We were like putting the stakes in, and they were getting bent every which way, and we don't have a mallet. The ground was nice and hard, and the tent was like caving in on us all night, and it got super cold, so there was like moisture condensing on the tent. And yeah, so it was a great idea to like do a spur of the moment, like, hey, let's make it halfway to our friend's house, and then we'll spend the weekend with them, and we won't like have to leave after work and get there super late. But it was an interesting adventure. And from all of this, the things that I've learned that we now need to put into place. There's these things called sleeping pads. They're inflatable, basically like an inflatable 2-inch thin air mattress, and there's different kinds, but there's ones designed for camping that you can fill up in 10 breaths of air. So breathe in, breathe out 10 times, and your air mattress is ready to go. I think that would be great. I don't have like a huge problem sleeping on the ground, but extra cushioning is never a bad thing, so I'm apparently now turning into my parents. Gas camping stove, also a good thing. Not a necessity, but kind of nice. Definitely have an electric extension cord designed for the outdoors. When cleaning your cast iron skillet, you don't use soap. You use water and oil. Rinse it, wash it off, scrub it off. Use oil to redampen it and kind of cook it into the skillet. The soap tends to cause it to rust. So those were some interesting things that I learned with that. We're also looking to get like a little screen house to put over our picnic table. I mean, I've never seen this done before, but who says it can't be? My husband and I are board gamers, him more so than I. And so he like brought board games with us when we went to the KOA, and we just played board games. But to keep the bugs away, having a little screen house tent to go over the picnic area would also be kind of nice. So that was kind of our first tenting experience. It was cool. It was fun. It was a way during COVID to, be outside, feel like I'm traveling, even if we traveled in town, and get to have some of those adventures. So if you have had some interesting pandemic camping adventures, I would love to hear about that on Facebook, Instagram. Let us know about those things. I know I've been doing like a weekly like where I've seen God in our travels, and I think I kind of did just share a little bit of that in all of that. I guess where I saw God the most in all of that was our discussions about our dreams and our future ambitions, and just the encouragement I received from my spouse. And we got to have church service online, even though we were tenting, somewhere else. So that's kind of where I saw God in my travels in those adventures. If you are considering booking your a trip for your college friends, for your youth group, for your college ministry, for family, friends, anything for 2021. I know COVID is limiting a lot of us, but at the same time, we all love traveling, and so there's that excitement there. So as you're looking to 2021 for your travels, consider booking with us. We have amazing faith resources to pair with your travels and make them go just that much further. We're really excited to be booking for you, and getting you amazing deals. So until next time, safe travels and God bless.